And
Yeah, you brought up a good point.
yeah,
That you mentioned a great point you mentioned was the roles. Roles have developed and changed over time. The role of a man 100 years ago or 50 years ago is obviously completely different. I think
but
of
why has it changed so drastically?
I think there's a lot of factors why it changed. It could be culture, and it could be the environment, the times we live in. Think about the economy. Back then, a man could, let's say, be that 100% protector and provider, and he could work. He could be an electrician. He could be a welder, and then live middle class and take care of his wife while she stayed at home with the kids. Now you can't really do that.
Well, that's based on the demands. Well, and then you got to think of, some people could say the demands or the cost of living or blah, blah, blah. Or could it be attributed to just wanting more? Do you think if men just lived simpler, that wouldn't force as much change as we go through in time? I think primarily most of those changes is because people just want more.
You mean Americans?
Yes.
That's what it really boils down to.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, well, you and I. It's just, and that's part of the surrounding cultures.
Yeah.
We want to live a little bit more of a comfortable life than our parents did and those who came before us. Nothing necessarily wrong with that, but then where do you draw the line?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically where we get off track, because then the lines are, somebody wrote a song not too long ago called it Blurred Lines. The lines are blurred now.
Yeah.
That goes to show you why it's so important for us to have guidelines in every institution. Your job, your church, any rec center or YMCA, they have to have guidelines. Every institution has them. Well, the home, that's the first foundation of things. So think of how more important those guidelines are in the home. And we veered away from that because nobody's guarding the gate of the home. So kind of anything goes in and out of the home. So that blurs the lines. And of course, when you get them blurred that bad, that's going to cause sociological changes with everybody. That's why it's so important for everybody in the household to have a biblical structure foundation, to have that knowledge. And it's been said before, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
When you have knowledge, you can set some things in order. When you don't, anybody can set it in order. And so that's what we're struggling with in society too, is a lack of knowledge. And biblical knowledge, is one of the most important forms of knowledge that you can receive if you get it along with wisdom. Wisdom has to go with knowledge because you have to know how to use it. But a biblical knowledge, it sets you up to be able to handle your secular knowledge. In other words, and then to give you the wisdom to know what to do with that and how to apply with that and keep that in its perimeters. And that's what really will keep us structured as a society. But when you remove all the perimeters and all the borders, you open the door for anything goes. And that's where we are in society right now. Anything goes. And then once you get like that, how do you reel that back in? So that opens up another set of problems. Well, I got my rights. I can do what I want, say what I want. Freedom of speech, freedom of this. When everybody got those freedoms and they don't have any foundations or no perimeters, then that's when it gets sideways real fast.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think it is hard to reel back in. And you mentioned as far as maybe men or even women could be more modest when it comes to living, because remember, like you were stating, it could be due to inflation, the economy, and times has changed where that man can't be that single provider. Mm-hmm. And I think when other countries view us, because we're obviously a consumer market here, right? We consume and we import everything. We have a huge trade imbalance. And so I think in a way it's almost inevitable, because I think of I'm not sure when refrigerators came out or microwaves, but I'm sure at some point people were living so simple, right? And the next thing you know, they come out with a microwave, and then one person down the street gets one. And then you hear about, hey, Betsy and them, they got a microwave in their house. And then guess what? You're going to want to get a microwave. Yeah. And I think
I want one bigger than Betsy.
and then you think about it.
Then I want a rare one. Color costs even more.
Exactly. It's my like you said, my microwave is bigger than yours, and also the other aspect. Think about when the phones came out. Yep. Before it was just house phones, and then it was a luxury to start getting that Nokia flip phone, that cell phone. Absolutely. And so I think with innovation and technology, you're bound to kind of evolve with the time. As you evolve with the times, guess what? That spikes your cost of living, and it spikes your lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely.
And that could blur the the gender lines and the roles.
Well, absolutely. Because then when you look at it, not only do the parents have to make those decisions, but then you bring the kids engaged in that. And then every child wants a phone. Okay, mom, I want a new phone. I want to get it on the plan. I want this. This has 3 cameras. This has that. Where you draw the lines. And like you say, society is going to force a lot of changes. And that's the thing about the difference between spiritual and secular education. See, the world says, boom, you got to keep up with the times, and you got to be a shaker and a mover. But when you have a biblical foundation, you can use proper judgment to know just how far you have to go with the changes. Certain things, okay, just say, for instance, the technology of the day and age of computers. You can't do anything without being connected.
Today.
You can't do anything without being connected. But you can limit how that really changes you. Okay, you might do banking, and just like we have this media to do what we're doing right now, it's a benefit to it. In other words, and all of that can be used for good or evil. You can use it properly. You can use this platform that we're using, spending time properly. Or guess what? I can shift that paradigm and I can look at pornography all day. It all depends. It all depends on the parameters and the walls it's put up. And that's where the foundation is important, because from a spiritual standpoint, you have to be able to make good choices versus the world that's just got many choices, but nobody looks from a wise standpoint. In other words, from a biblical wisdom standpoint, to make the proper choices. So therefore, it's just wide open with no perimeters. Yeah. Then that's what starts to force the changes of masculinity and femininity. In other words, because all these choices, hey, I got all these choices. Hey, I can do it like this and do it like that. But if you don't realize the danger of the consequences of the choice you could make, because for every action, there is a reaction. So that's how important it is to have wisdom. That's how important wisdom is to have. And the Bible says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask. And we lack wisdom, even though we are secularly and worldly educated, and many of us with degrees, we have a lot of knowledge. That doesn't mean we have a lot of wisdom to go with that knowledge. Some of the wisest people still make some terrible decisions sometimes. And that's what happens when you have a lack of wisdom. And what wisdom says is, hey, if I make the choice to do this, what's going to be the centrifugal force of the reaction of the decision that I made? See, wisdom calls you to look at things from a lot of different angles. In other words, from the 360 versus just having a bunch of knowledge. Hey, I can do this. I'm not looking at it from a 360 or not even perhaps a 180. It's just that I've got the knowledge to do this, and this is what I'm going to do. But we have to realize we're not in this world by ourselves. In other words, you don't work in the company by yourself. I don't live in the house all by myself. And see, godly wisdom, it helps to shape and to form all that. And then that's what will keep a society in balance. But when the wheels fall off and the doors fly wide open, boom, man, there's no balance there. Everything going great. You think about what happened if you up, what? I'd say 60,000 feet in the airplane up in the air. And then you just decide, I'm going to open the door and get some fresh air.
Good luck.
It ain't going to work out too good. Not for you and everybody else.